farmers and the businesses and people that rely on them full time. Also had the pleasure of introducing some citizens to our regional citizenship ceremony on the 16th of June. So moving beyond mere communication into item 4.2, there's no requested documents and correspondence to the tables. Councillors, we have received a petition, and that petition is of 123 signatories from Robert Ample and residents requesting an upgrade to the Melbourne Street and Punda. Details of the petition are contained in the attachments. My suggestion is that we receive the petition at this meeting, and if we want to act on the petition, then the council might come for motion for the next council meeting to respond to requests of those residents unless someone wants to discuss that further at the moment. Okay, thank you. And the second petition has been received this month as well. 113 signatories received from Standard User and residents requesting regular transport options in Kapunda. The lack of public transport in the region is something that's been reported, particularly in Kapunda, and programs being raised to me directly. There is a draft regional transport strategy out at the moment, creating consultation that the council will make sufficient on. So I guess similar to the previous petition, unless anyone wanted to raise anything specifically this evening, then perhaps we can reflect on that. Further action in July. There is a report in this council which is effectively a response to that consultation strategy. Councillor Cole.
So with the petition, is there any correspondence that we put back to the executive that we received it and or what happens?
Good question. So we, I guess, have noted that we've received it in this meeting. I guess the question for the CEO in terms of how the council administration goes about responding and acknowledging that we've received the petition.
Thank you for the chair. So we receive petitions. They actually are to go into the agenda. That's the process. We will ensure that we respond. I believe we already have to say that we've acknowledged we've received it and it's in the agenda.
I believe we've got a letter to the there may be that they received something. I think acknowledging with the petition. I know Robin put a lot of work into the one in Milford Street, so probably going to have the same correspondence officially coming from us.
Yeah.
I think that would be fine.
Agreed. So would you like to carry?
Thank you through the chair. So you'd like a motion?
So this year, this is the first time we've received a petition for 3 years until and I've been on the council. So I've been obviously what Councillor Collins was saying is that the number of people have contacted into organising and responding to the petition, and not be happy with the staff response. If we have a motion to do that, or can we just take action?
Sorry, through the chair. So we have responded to that. We've received it and gone into the agenda.
Yes.
And you suggest what you're after is a response, formal response from the mayor to say that it's been received and put in the agenda.
But it's saying, because we'll go on further in the meeting, we start talking about how we see the community. If we just say we've got it, which is fine, I think that's good that we've done that. But I think if you want to get respect from the community, I think the mayor is elected member going to charge the getting a letter from him to offer and saying, acknowledging the work that he's been done, acknowledging, I just can't seem to be sure. You just don't reply, you just say, don't put it in the agenda and we'll see you later. I think that would need acknowledgement from someone head of the organisation, so to speak, and show some respect that I think that deserves. We've got 240 people, one's 130, one's 113, so you've got obviously show respect.
Thank you. So, through the chair, I don't think that if we had a motion requesting that, the next
Motion that we like to the petitioners. Thank you for their petitions, and that we'll consider them the merit of something. Yeah.
Provide response to the petitioners. I think that we received petitions. Yeah. And received petitions to a council meeting. And that we will consider future actions in due course.
Yeah.
Consider future actions.
So then one of the first one about Wilbur Street, they were also asking for a meeting with myself and the mayor on I saw that in general on the today, I think they read that before, but the one where we should, I mean, a couple more members have a meeting with those.
Yeah, I think it. Maybe it's been requested, I should say. Facilitate. So perhaps that should be part of the response in that we invite them to, to a meeting with the Dublin Ward councillors and the acting amendment.
We've got another today regarding treatment, so some of the historical correspondence with dated 2010, so it's
The administration organise a meeting with the petitioner.
Through the chair, so just trying to understand what the motion is at the moment. So it's just the Dublin Ward members and the acting mayor who wish to meet people. There's no motion required because there's no direction to do anything. So the elected members just meet with the person. We're only talking about a letter of response from the administration for the first part. The second part is what? Just trying to understand what you're looking for.
I think it's a commitment. It's an acknowledgement that we've received a request and a commitment to meet.
I don't know really well. Before. Just I just read they asked for a meeting, the petition, so that's do we look at that in this motion? What they made by the motion has to be written. So if you don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, our normal approach to this would be receiving the petition, which has occurred. It's in the agenda. I think one of those items will be the Megan, one of those items will be Craig. They'll prepare reports, bring reports back to the elected body for its consideration. That's the process that we would normally take on petitions, so that it actually will close the matter out via a council report in one way, shape or the other. It'll give the elected body something to actually consider. And if meetings are part of that, that's cool. But I think that would be driven by the administration to support those petitioners and the elected body in its decision making.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to understand the process in terms of getting something done. I think we're acknowledging that significant number of people that brought this issue to our attention. I guess we're showing a little bit of empathy in saying, yep, we've acknowledged it and we're acknowledging it publicly and we're making a commitment publicly to respond to it. then from then, if there's a motion that comes either from someone that says, okay, we need a report so we can inform our decision making about how we respond to it and whether we can get funds to it. Councillor Simon?
Oh, yeah, that was, I think, and there is very is all petition, maybe it's just competition. But it's not a big.
I think the meeting was specifically requested by the first, but not second. But happy to extend the invitation and make it.
That's what it should.
Councillor Connolly and Kath, are you happy with what's up on the screen?
Well, you have to put both in this, so you've got no. Members,
Vote with both petitioners.
we read both the issue.
It's both conditioners.
And relevant.
Councillor Bill?
Yeah, well, yeah, the 5.2 is more than broad, just down there, so it's the whole council there. And I have Sam has spoken on these, she's expecting to have a meeting, which is under the expectation of a procedure, so probably whether it needs to be, and I'm not sure what she's
Thanks, Councillor Bill. You happy with that now, Councillor Collins? And we've got a secondary, Councillor Simon. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Simon? Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to the motion? In that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. There are no deputations or agenda items for this meeting, so we move then straight into item 8, which is action items. So I'll just refer to each page and just look to see if there's any questions. Page 7.
Yes.
Yes, Councillor.
Anglo Bridge, hanging around here, this meeting played council tonight, discussing it, just whatever the meetings were, the comments you might want to.
Councillor Bill.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, the city of Clayton had reports go to council in April, also a couple of weeks ago to the committee. They're all in confidence. It's also going up again tonight in confidence, and I believe there is a deputation in relation to the bridge going up tonight. And once I think the city of Clayton make a decision on which direction they wish to go, they'll keep us informed. Thank you.
With that, Councillor. Moving then into page 8. Councillor Simon.
Yes, I'd like to look at I've mentioned accounting policy. So the motion that was carried in that was April, so said that we're going to get a policy by the end of the financial year, which is in 6 days' time. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Richard Paul.
Yeah, thank you. I'll have to take that question on notice. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Councillor Collins.
I just, about the car parking, I'm just wondering how we're going to see later in the agenda, got down to your comments, very quickly we can get a new one, better.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. I've waited to see how the state government's proposal sort of worked through their process, and we haven't really had about that in the past couple of months. But I have drafted a scheme and a fund looking around the state model, using application guidance from that, which I'm now seeking just some legal input on where we don't have much of our guidance on this process. I'm just making sure we've got The place is coming to, then bring that back to the chamber, hopefully, well, certainly have the earliest opportunity.
Councillor Cole?
I don't think I'd say the state government, that's 2.5 years of being managed expansion window, so. Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. Moving then to page 9. Page 10. Page 11. Page 12. Page 13. And the action items. There's no other questions or?
Right.
Yeah, sorry, councillor.
Sorry, on this one, page 11, I was just noticing all this silo, which is interesting, but I see the brief, had someone to be done up there, talking with the guest speaker, and they're talking about budget for the car park and a few different things. But I just thought we had a committee, silo art committee, being, I should thought I wanted, but anyway, I'm just wondering, is it always going to be done through the mural committee rather than a silo art committee? I'm wondering how it's functioning.
If someone would like to respond to that. Thank you, councillor Dane.
That's a good question, Councillor Collins, and it states the mural committee is doing most of the day-to-day stuff. And its understanding, I think, was that the reference group would be to provide general guidance, and I would suspect another meeting would be held very shortly, because we are now raising enough funds that we can proceed with the project and hopefully meet the timeline of having it done during the small town conference in September. If you like, I can pass on your observation to the committee.
Happy to do that, and suggest perhaps that group needs greater involvement than it's currently getting. If that would be acceptable to you?
Yeah, I think that the idea when the resolution was passed that a representative from council would be involved, I thought that the reason for that was, you know, council's giving $40,000, so there was some oversight from the chamber, and that's how I envisioned it. And if you're talking about extending the budget and then you know, site access, car parking, landscaping, all the costs to go into it, I think that's very much on topic, and I think it should be discussed in that committee rather than just in the mural committee.
Thank you, councillor Dean and councillor Collins. Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Bottom of page 12. So I just want to talk about the Gola Belt burning permit. So yes, I saw that come up on the Facebook page for the council. So I posted it on the Gola Belt Facebook page and received interesting comments. A lot of people said they never realised they had to ever apply for a burning permit. Some wondered why we couldn't burn on a Sunday. So yeah, there was a mixed variety of questions that, well, to the process that I put up there, but overall, I'm pretty happy with that. So thanks, Craig and team.
Yeah, I saw some of those comments myself. I think it's a good outcome overall. So thank you, councillor Ellison. So that brings us to item 9. There are no. Oh, sorry, councillor.
Just one, page 13, the management agreements. It's great they finally come out. There's a bit of concern in I'm the Samuel Dawkins Reserve, because we've now got to get insurance for volunteer workers in the area, and an additional insurance cover, and we've got to appoint a safety officer who's responsible for people using the park as well as people who are volunteering working in the park. It just seems we're getting harder and harder and more complicated. It's, I don't know whether it's, it's OC health and safety, but do we really need to push it to that extent? And, I mean, we'll probably end up having to pay the insurance cover for the volunteers as a council anyway. So can't that somehow be incorporated into the council's insurance rather than getting all these different blokes to have two lots of insurance? They've got public liability and then they've got volunteers insurance. Just seems a bit bureaucratic.
Thanks, councillor Bill. Is there anyone that can respond to that or?
Thank you, through the chair.
Thanks, Megan.
Yes, I take on board your comments, councillor Bill. The local government risk services have provided advice on the requirements, particularly for volunteers. However, I'm happy to discuss the details of that agreement with you to see what we can work out to assist the group, because we don't want it to be an imposition to the group.
Just a comment, in our group, it would be actually better if we paid someone than actually pay the insurance. We just wouldn't do it voluntarily, so we won't touch it. And that's not really what community functions are meant to be about.
Thanks, councillor Bill, and thank you, Megan. Councillors, just checking, any other questions on the action items? Okay. There are no recommendations from committees, so that moves us then. Oh, sorry. I've missed it. Sorry, it's in the supplementary. There is a recommendation, apologies, from the Audit and Risk Committee up on the screen. Councillors, that the agenda reports and minutes of the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee held on the 17th of June be received. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Councillor Simon, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Dean, would anyone like to speak to that recommendation? We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. There is a second recommendation on the screen. The reports and recommendations of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting of the 17th of June, numbered 1 to 4 as listed, be adopted. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Councillor Dean, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Simon. Councillors, would anyone like to speak to that recommendation? No, in that case, I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. So that brings us to item 10, infrastructure and sustainability reports. There's a comprehensive report here that's been prepared by Jason. Are there any updates, Megan, on that report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Michael. I think in the report it noted that Terrace Road was the last road to be resheeted, and I believe if not today, this week it will be completed.
Good, thank you. Moving then into item 10.2. So this was a really good report as well. Thank you, about the pedestrian safety at Xavier College. So I did have a question on it though. So there's an inference here that an emu crossing is one possible solution. So the action that comes out of this report for information now is that the council will liaise with Xavier College directly. Is that right? To then work out a solution, and then there would be a report that would come at a future meeting. Is that?
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Yes, we will write to Xavier College with some information that may assist them. And if there is an outcome that impacts council's assets, such as the road and a crossing, then that'll be a report to council.
Councillor Simon?
Yeah, I was wondering, it's a good report. It's quite informative. One little thing that I find a bit confusing, because the two crossings, or the two options between the one is a koala one, and I think the other one's the wombat, or emu, just another Australian animal. So, and then it's sort of given these levels of traffic volume and I think pedestrians, and then which would make it feasible or not. But I mean, they're sort of talking about these volumes, and then which in my opinion sound like, yep, that's. I think they're talking about over 50 people crossing on 2 separate hours of the day, and I think one is 70 and 130. So on average, that would be 50, which in my opinion that would go over the 50, and the traffic volume is way above what the thing would be. But then they come to the conclusion to not do it or not recommend one. That I thought that was a bit confusing. I just wondered if I can have a bit more clarification on that. Thanks, Megan.
Sorry, may I just recap, please, Councillor Simon? Clarification on the traffic volumes and the pedestrian volumes as to why we haven't recommended an emu crossing.
Yes.
The report was to provide all the facts. Now, the emu crossing, I believe, had don't quote me on the exact numbers, but it didn't quite reach the numbers. In speaking with the school previously, the emu crossing requires flags to be put out also, and that's the responsibility of the school. I think there's a number of schools in the area that probably don't realise that, and it also makes or relies on driver behaviour to understand what the speed limit is when those flags are out. So that's why we recommended also education requirement to the school, and we can help them with that kind of information back to the parents and the students, obviously, who are driving.
Councillor Simon?
Yeah, so I mean, I was talking about the other one where I was talking about a threshold of how many students would be required to make this feasible or not. And like I said, you then did in my opinion, it seemed like that threshold was reached. And so the question actually would probably be, how much would a emu crossing cost anyway?
Thank you, through the chair. The emu crossing would cost around $60,000. We haven't priced the koala crossing.
My apology. I think I'm confusing Australian animals. I'm talking about the other one, the one with the lights, the more expensive one, because that's the one, the koala. Then that's the one. How much would that be?
The one with the lights we haven't priced.
Councillor Simon?
So one more last question. So where did all this information come from about the Xavier College? Because I thought there was a development application actually being assessed right now from Xavier College to, I think they're building big stuff and car parks and new buildings and everything. And that there would obviously be that would have some impact on all of this. I just wondered how much that's been taken in consideration.
Thank you. Through the chair, in providing this report, at the late stage, we learnt of the application that had been lodged, and we were advised of a car parking area for students, I believe, which is close to where the proposed emu crossing is in the drawings that we've provided. The crossing with the flags. The rest of the application isn't relevant, other than traffic numbers, but if Lisa would like to add further to that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Through the chair, that application is currently with the Department of Infrastructure and Transport under a referral. They've asked for a detailed report, traffic numbers, interventions, and a number of other information. That information hasn't been actually provided to the department from the applicant. That is due this week from recollection. So once they provide that information, the department will give us an official response, and they may have an impact on direction as to whether there may be some other works required, because they hadn't proposed any through the application other than to do their multi-storey building and additional car parking. So at this point, I can't provide anything further, but we'll be largely guided by the Department of Infrastructure and Transport, who's a referral agency and has powers of direction.
If I can,
Councillor Simon.
Thank you, Michael. I've talked to the operations manager from Xavier College, and he said that he has not heard from council about this issue at all, and he didn't know about the original motion from April, and he did not know about this report being on the agenda. I did tell him that he might want to listen in. So I'm just wondering, how is that possible that like a quite high official at the school who is responsible for exactly that did not hear about that?
Thank you, councillor Simon. Megan, did we discuss it in preparing the report? Was there a discussion with Xavier?
No, the report's been prepared in response to the motion.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, councillor Simon. Moving then into item 10.3, Parbs Road investigation. Councillors, are there any questions on this report? Then item 10.4, Wycott Road investigation. Oh, sorry, councillor Collin.
Well, I was sort of reading this on to understand Parbs Road is being put in the budget. Is that right? So, but I was going to look at the budget, but I couldn't see the new budget to see what was going. So Parbs Road is to be included, that section to be upgraded.
Megan?
Through the chair, there is an allocation in the budget still for the upgrade of unsealed roads to a different classification, and pending the outcome of this report, there will be a further report in July to recommend the roads for that allocation for the first year.
Because if I read the report correctly, there's a table here that I guess summarises thresholds for different classifications, and so this road at the moment has a traffic volume of 35 vehicles per day, which would put it at a class 4. Is that right?
Through the chair, those average vehicles per day, that table, that is actually the average vehicles per day of the data that we're collecting of our roads. That's not necessarily a table of, of a strategy that we follow.
But just on that, then, is there a mechanism by which we say at this level of traffic, then that would trigger a consideration of upgrading a road, or is that's not how we do it?
Staff have prepared Parbs Road for the coming financial year to be upgraded, subject to a further report to council. So we are considering it based on the information that we have and the connectivity that it does provide.
Okay, thanks, Megan. Councillor Collin?
The reason I was asking, so if there will be a report to come further, which we'll have the opportunity to vote to bring it up to a class, from a class 3 to a class 4, there's not a need for a motion to be done now to do that. That's what I was, because I think this road does warrant an upgrade, in my opinion. So I'd like to see it upgraded. So I just want to make sure that it is upgraded in this budget.
Thank you, Councillor Collin. Through the chair, we'll provide in that report a couple of options for you, and that way elected members are fully informed.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Collin and Megan. Item 10.4, report for information on Wycott Road upgrading. Any questions on that, councillors? No? Okay, so there's a recommendation on the screen. Mover, thank you, Councillor Lynette. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Dean. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 11 is a report on economic development. Councillors, is there any update to this report? Thank you, Scott. Any questions, councillors? There's a recommendation then on the screen that council receives the report, the contents therein be noted. Is there a mover of that recommendation? Thank you, councillor Bill. A seconder, councillor Simon. Thank you. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Is carried. Thank you. Item 12, reports for information. The first report is the CEO's monthly report. Richard, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
No, nothing further to add. Thank you.
You, councillors, any questions on CEO's monthly report? Moving then on to 12.2, customer satisfaction action plan, the quarterly report. Are there any further updates to that? Any questions, councillors? Okay, we'll move then into item 12.3, future use of land, of council land. So this is a report based on a resolution of council brought forward by Councillor Fabio. I think this is a really good report. I don't think I had any. I guess the question I sort of had is that, I mean, this is a very comprehensive report that speaks to a number of options. I think the question in my mind is then where to from here? Is there any intention from, I guess, the administration to bring further reports on how we intend to then deal with this piece of council land? Because it does allude to a future report that, looks at all of the land in totality.
Through the chair, yes, there is a number of council sites that we have that have a lot of potential, and it's probably best that you let the members consider them all rather than singularly and individually. You need to consider the whole package. A report and master planning of individual sites is warranted, subject to let the members' approval.
Okay, so is that something that's going to be worked on or is being worked on at the moment and will come to a future meeting?
It hasn't been worked on at the moment as we don't have the current project officer available to do that.
Item 12.4 is a report on the Kapunda Car Parking Fund agreements. Councillors, are there any questions on that? In that case, there's a recommendation on the screen that the reports for information be received and contents therein noted by council. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Bill. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, councillors, that brings us to our reports for decision. Item 13, the first report is in respect of, excuse me, dedicated limited hour parking for caravans and RVs in Kapunda, Greenock and Freeling. Councillors, there's a recommendation on the screen. Is there any questions in relation to the report? Councillor Simon.
Thanks, through the chair. The one question I do have is, there's all these different options there, and I can see why one would be preferred to the other. I'm just wondering how much the preferred options were they decided by council, or was there some community consultation, or how do we ended up at the preferred option? Because some of them I can see there's some logic behind it that I can see, and others I can't really. So I just wondered how we ended up at the preferred options.
Through the chair.
Scott.
So Councillor Simon, I have been talking to a few of the businesses that are around that area within Kapunda. Within Greenock, it was more not affecting residents or businesses there because there is limited parking apart from the car park site there, just on the side. So it was about that. And with Freeling, obviously with the new car park that was created, It was really the most recommended one because it has RV and caravan parking within that.
Thank you, councillor Simon.
So if I can follow up, just so there was community input, because I think that would be the most important thing. Like for us sitting here that don't live in these places, I can't really make that judgment properly unless I know that the community sort of been asked and they're happy with those locations.
Through the chair. So in the report, it does say that we can go out to community consultation for that to get the broader community's views on this, and happy to do that. You just have to do a motion.
Thank you, Sky. And also, there's still some feedback from some residents in Freeling that they'd like to see a more permanent solution. I think that's something that council considered a little while ago, and I think the outcome of that was that there wasn't a suitable location in Freeling at the moment to accommodate overnight RV and caravan parking. Councillors, there's a recommendation. Councillor Collins.
I've just got one. I know Fabio in the last meeting is a bit concerned about the North Kapunda Hotel one. Someone asked them, or it still hasn't been bought, has it?
Yeah, through the chair, yes, it's still for sale. That is why instead of being right next to the North Kapunda Hotel, I've done adjacent to the North Kapunda Hotel. So there's, yeah, so the other side of the road. So giving the opportunity for people who purchase in the future for car parking for their customers.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Councillor Collins. Councillors, do I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Collins, thank you. Would you like to speak to it? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dean, would you like to speak to it? Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? Councillor Bill.
Just to say, I thought it was a really good report, and it was very thorough and really well done. So congratulations.
Thanks, Councillor Bill. Well done. All right, councillors, in that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. Item 13.2 is the adoption of the Light Regional Council Sport, Recreation and Open Space Plan. Council, are there any questions in relation to the plan and the report? Just know that it's a very, from my point of view, it's a very comprehensive plan, I think, that identifies the future needs of the region from an open space and recreation perspective. So I was quite happy with the way it was presented. And I guess just to remind everybody that this plan has been out for public consultation. I don't believe there are any submissions on it, is my understanding. So the plan that we've got to consider this evening has gone through that. There were submissions. Thank you, Sky. Yeah, there were a few. Yeah, I remember reading that. Apologies. Council, is there any questions in relation to the recommendation in the plan? In that case, do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Ellison. Would you like to speak to it? A seconder? Councillor Collins, thank you. Would you like to speak to it? Councillors, anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? In that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you, everyone. Councillors, the next item is the adoption of the local affordable housing plan. So again, this plan has been out for public consultation and was subject of some discussion around the extent to which the council wanted to be actively involved in addressing housing issues. So this is the product of that. Are there any questions in relation to the plan or the recommendation? Councillor.
I heard the other day about a new type of affordable housing, and it was on SBS, I think, and they are called mini housing, and so they're small, and and they value at about $9,500. And I think that we should look into that with this particular thing, because and I had a look online and they look really good. They've got ensuite, but they're very small, and so I don't know whether we want to look into that or not.
Yeah, I think I read something similar in that the state government's looking at prefabricated or modular housing solutions. I think, look, as a council, I guess what we could do is, in the context of what we agreed that this would be is really around advocacy and informing people. I think we could probably do that. Yeah. Any other comments, questions, councillors? Councillor Lynette, just your microphone. Okay, in that case, do I have a mover of the recommendation? Councillor Simon? Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Allison. Put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Councillors, item 13.4, we discussed briefly earlier when we were considering the petitions from some of our residents around public transport. The councillors, the recommendation on the screen is asking us to receive these reports and request the CEO or his delegate to make a submission on behalf of the council to this regional review. Are there any questions in relation to that? Okay. Do I have a mover of the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Allison. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Lynette, thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the recommendation? I'd probably just have a quick question. Is this submission, like with the GARP, something that comes back to the council to receive before it's submitted, or will it just be submitted for this one? Okay. All right, thank you. Councillor Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Michael. Just a comment. The petition about transport, they're particularly looking for private cars that can carry people that can't go to hospitals or medical appointments and something like that. I know we've had a report, Lorinda did a while back, but it seems that the Barossa community cars are very restricted, and really you've got to be over 65 and age, whatever my age client to get it. I don't know whether we can include something in this report, this request about the availability of private cars and people, a council car with a volunteer driving or something of that nature, but that's something that might be worth looking at.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Councillor Bill, is that something that we can consider as part of this response?
Sorry, through the chair. No, certainly. I think we can add that as part of the highlighting of both disadvantage plus the desired type of service. I think equally we can make mention of the petition the council received earlier in the meeting, just to highlight, I guess, community interest expressed that way as well. So, we can link that in, whether it's part of the dot points that we've listed in there or otherwise as an additional.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Councillor Bill. All right, councillors, we have a mover and a seconder. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Which then moves us into item 13.5, which is the draft state community engagement charter. Is there any further information on this report? Through the chair, no. Mr Mayor. Thank you, Craig. Councillors, are there any questions in relation to charter or the recommendation? No, in that case, there's a recommendation on the screen. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dean. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Dean or Simon, would either of you like to speak to that? No. And councillors, anyone else like to speak to that? We'll put that then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Councillors, item 13.6 is in the supplementary agenda and is a request from the community for event funding support for the Just a Farmer meeting. Are there any questions in relation to the recommendation? No. Do I have a mover of the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Dean. Would you like to speak to it?
It's a very worthwhile program, and there's a good reason why it didn't meet the normal timing. That had to be organised. That took a while, so why I support it.
That's great. Thanks, Councillor Dean. Councillor Lynette.
Yes, I spoke to Gavin about this, and he's actually paid $6,000 already to put it together so that it can go. He hadn't made up his mind where it was going to be at the Gawler Cinema or where he was going to be doing it, but I think this $1,000 is just a drop in the ocean to what he's already put into it.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lynette. I agree. I think it's a great initiative. Would anyone else like to speak? Sorry, I do need a seconder. Oh, sorry, you did second it. Thanks, Councillor Lynette. Would anyone else like to speak to the recommendation? No, in that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Councillors, item 13.7 is a amendment to the behavioural management policy. Is there anything further, Carrie, that we need to be made aware of on this? So is this a change that's come through from the LGA or through regulation that we need to adopt, or is it just an update?
Thank you, through the chair. No, it was just due on our schedule to update to align to the policy framework that we delivered to council, and council adopted a little while ago. So it's just aligning that. The very minor changes as noted in the report, but largely follows the LGA model policy.
Thank you. Councillors, there's a recommendation up on the screen. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Would you like to speak to it? Thank you, Councillor Lynette. The seconder, would you like to speak to it? Would anyone else like to speak to this recommendation? In that case, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. That brings us then to questions on notice, of which there are none. Councillor Allison, I understand that you have a question without notice.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Just in relation to the green waste bins for Gawler Belt. So I've got my letter here dated the 19th of May. My question was, we didn't actually approve it till the 27th. So I was just wondering how that went out a week earlier than, and that's, yeah, been a question. So I'm just asking
I think the other thing was, my understanding is that there had to be a response by the 31st of May.
Yeah, so that's my next
Oh, sorry.
question. Yep. So going on from that, so my first question is a letter dated the 19th when we approved it at about the 27th of May. And then in the letter, it had to be replied back to by the 30th. I think I got my letter on the 29th at the mailbox. Not that I was replying because I'm not interested in a green rubbish bin, but that also had discussions on the Gawler Belt Facebook page where there was some wrong information apparently to contact Solo. It was a wrong number. You probably read the same context back. And they couldn't get anyone to reply to them. And then the 30th went past. So then there was a lot of discussion on would they still be able to get a green bin. So I was just wondering if we had numbers on how many people have actually taken that up, just with that small database that occurred to reply back. So I'm not sure who can answer that question. Megan, maybe? Thanks.
Thank you through the chair. A credit to our eager staff trying to be organised. The actual numbers of who's taken up, I can't tell you that right now. I need to follow that up. But I can tell you that we did make contact with the people who responded with the yes earlier. So we were to, and we still sent it to everybody, just in case some people change their mind.
So is it right though, if they haven't responded by the 31st of May, that they're not able to get the green bin?
No, that's not correct. No, that was just more to try and plan and organise with Solo.
Thanks, Megan. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Michael. Just at some point, Megan, can I just out of interest like to find out how many actually have taken that up? There's only a little bit of chatter about it through like a few people, but I'd just be interested in the numbers. Thanks.
Right, councillors, that moves us, sorry, Councillor Simon.
Thanks, Mayor Michael. I do have a question. I haven't been able to go back exactly when that happened. I'm sure all you guys remember there was a point that there was some I don't know, misunderstanding possibly about how the Freeling Institute is going to be run, and there was a Freeling Institute committee that was said to be stepping down or was stepping down or didn't want to run it anymore, and then there was a takeover of the CFS that might do it or not, and there was some sort of misunderstanding. I think I never really got to the bottom of it, but then what happened now is that it's now run by the council. So I just wondered how this all is going. Like it seems like that there was a committee that wanted to run it, and then was the confusion that they actually don't want to run it, and then it was meant to go to the CFS, and then we sort of stopped the whole thing at a report that came to council. And since then, I'm not sure who's actually running it, other than I know that it must be council. So I don't know how this happened.
Thank you, Councillor Simon. Megan?
Thank you through the chair. There will be a report coming to council on the matter for a management agreement to be provided to a group. There has been a review in the whole process undertaken internally, and there will be a memo to elect the members act has been drafted, and also letters to the two groups have been drafted.
You happy with that, Councillor Simon? Thank you. Thanks, Megan. All right, councillors. That brings us then to item 16, motions on notice. There's one motion on notice there from that's been brought forward by me, and this is based on some feedback from community members out in the Wasleys area, and they'd like council to turn its mind to consideration of sealing Wasleys Road. So hence I'm calling for a report on that, and that's something that could be used to shape future budget decisions. It's obviously not something that is going to make it into the budget for this year. I move that motion, Karen. So I'd like to move that motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Allison. Would you like to speak to it? Yep. Councillors, would anyone else like to speak to that motion? Put that then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, everyone. 16.2 is a motion on notice from Councillor Collin. So this is the separate rate for the Roseworthy Town expansion area. Councillor Collin, would you like to move that motion and speak to it?
Yes, please. I'd like to move it. Yeah, it's pretty, about this ground a fair bit actually. So, it's just trying to push it forward. Like it's, been hanging around a while. And I think, this motion, the purpose of it is to, try and hurry it up a bit and see if we can actually get some funds from to cover the costs of what we're doing down there. So anyway, that's hopefully people support it.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. So Councillor Collins moved the motion. Do I have a seconder?
Can I just have a question, Mayor Morgan?
Sure, Councillor.
Just in that line, applied to land which is residential and commercial zone and is currently in the prime production rates. Does that prime production rate, is that say you want that included, or is the residential and commercial zones currently in the prime production rates? It's just that and is leaves me a bit vague.
Well, the problem is that there's areas that are zoned, they've been zoned residential and commercial, but they haven't been developed. So they're still regarded as prime production. So they're paying a prime production rate on land that has already been earmarked for rezoning. So instead of paying a higher rate, they're paying the rate that you are for your paddock. So that I'm trying to capture that.
Yeah, can I suggest then instead of and is and also currently and land and also land currently in prime production rates category? Just I read that and I got lost. So if we can include it, if that makes sense. Apply to land which is current is residential and commercial and also land that is currently in prime production rates category. That makes sense to me.
Is it? It's reading it myself as well. Go ahead, Councillor Simon.
But I thought that the point of it is the same. It's land that is, that is in residential and commercial zone and is currently. It's the same land. It's not. If you put that in, it looks like it's also land. That means it's different land. It's the same land. It's the same land. It's a land that is actually being rezoned, but is used or still like sort of used as primary production, therefore only just rated as primary production, although it is in residential and commercial zones, which is at this point is a fair chunk of land out there that's in this sort of specific case. I think an and is more the way it was before was clear to me.
So you're saying owned by a developer but still used as primary production land? That's what you're. Yes. Yep. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, thank you, and through the chair. I can say comfortably, administration are very clear on what this is, and it will be even clearer when we bring the report back and actually show people exactly how it would be, what it will be applied to, and how it will be applied. So we're very clear of what is being asked for here, with what we've currently got written. I could explain it, and it'll throw us all. But it's basically anything in the Roseworthy Township expansion, irrespective of what its current zoning is, it will be applied with A and B. I could give some examples if you wanted, and a good one would be the and we've mentioned them before. There are 3 parcels of land, the Ryan, Pitt and Halliday land as an example. They're currently zoned primary production. They would be strategic employment lands under the commercial zoning, arguably, or an industrial zoning. Probably got that incorrect a bit, but I think you'll get what I'm saying. Councillor Collin is asking for a rate to be applied to them. Equally, in the last couple of weeks, we've probably had around about 50 or so allotments cleared in the Villawood area. So those allotments would sit as new blocks of land that are yet to be developed, residential, and those blocks would equally have a rate applied to them, which wasn't just vacant land, or it would be vacant land and it could be a percentage or whatever. That's the style of report that we would be bringing back to the chamber.
Councillor Collin.
And the other thing you're going to have to work out is how much we need, like how the cost of Craig and his team in implementing this stuff. So we're going to have to need how much recovery we need.
So just to go back a step, if I may. So when we say 50 allotments that have been, as an example, titled in Villawood, so does that mean that a person who has gone and purchased a block of land from Villawood, as the example stands, with the intention of building a home on it, is going to be subject to this separate rate?
The manner in which this motion has been written and is intended by Councillor Collin, that is correct.
But that land that's been titled as a residential block to develop a house on isn't primary production land.
It's caught up in item B, which is applied to new blocks that are yet to be developed.
Are you comfortable with is that what you want to achieve, Councillor Collin?
Yes, because I think I think it's a good thing because it's going to cost money to the new blocks to get developed. I know some people are going to get a bit worried that it's going to be the block owner, but it's the quicker they build the house, then it'll become a residential and away they go. So it's going to expedite the building of the house.
Councillor Simon?
But if I understood the question and the answer correctly, it is your question was somebody buys a block as the example stands in Villawood, and is then the owner of that block. That's some private person is the owner of a block of land at that estate. That then would be automatically rated as residential. So therefore, or in this case, as vacant land until somebody builds on it. So I personally have no intention of charging them an extra rate, because I think that would be completely, that's not the point. I thought the point was that all these empty land that some people own, that is actually residential land, because it's been that the big development plan amendment back then or whatever this has happened to make this residential land. That's the land that we want to target, and not private people buying a block of land and not building on it straight away. That is rated as vacant land, and we can have the discussion about the rate in dollar for vacant land to actually increase people, or like speed up people building. That's a whole different discussion. This should not be about that, in my opinion.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, and through the chair. Let's not debate just at the moment. We're only calling for a report into the different scenarios that, and when that report comes back from Craig and his team, I think all of those points you'll start contemplating what that actually means. So
yeah, thanks, Richard. Thank you, Councillor Simon, as well. Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. I think the word block has many different connotations. So you can call a block a massive big paddock or a small housing block. I think that's probably the word that's the stickler there.
Yeah, so I think that nuance will come out in the report by the sounds of things. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Peter. Would you like to speak to it? No. Would anyone else like to speak to it? Put that then to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, councillors, and good discussion on that as well. Are there any motions without notice, councillors? We'll move then into confidential items. So we're about to move into confidence. So thank you for everyone for joining us this evening. Councillors, there's a recommendation on the screen. I'm not going to read that verbatim. We've seen it many times before. Do I have a mover of that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Simon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ellison, thank you. We'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried.